Let's talk about something that doesn't get nearly enough attention in mainstream conversations about longevity and energy, the gut. And not in the superficial eat your yogurt kind of way. I'm talking about the gut as the biological command center for how fast you age, how much energy you produce, and how resilient your brain and body stay over time. Most people think aging is something that just happens to them. It's passive. You hit 40, things slow down. You hit 50, energy tanks. Memory gets fuzzier, joints ache, libido fades, and most people accept that decline like it's some law of nature. But the truth is, much of that aging is not chronological. It's biological. It's cellular. And your gut microbiome is at the very heart of that process. Inside your body right now are trillions of bacteria, viruses, and fungi, most of them living in your gut. They're not invaders. They're essential. They produce vitamins, modulate your immune system, communicate with your brain, and even regulate hormones. In fact, there are more bacterial cells in your gut than human cells in your body. And if that sounds wild, it's because it is. You are, in a very real sense, a host. And whether that relationship is beneficial or destructive depends entirely on how you live your life. What we're learning from the most cutting-edge research in microbiome science is this. Certain bacterial strains in the gut are directly linked to longevity. Not just correlation, but causation. When you have the right balance of beneficial microbes like Akkermansia muciniphila, Lactobacillus rhamnosus, Bifidobacterium longum, you see improvements in mitochondrial efficiency, reductions in systemic inflammation, and even the slowing of telomere shortening, which is one of the key markers of biological aging. These microbes produce short-chain fatty acids like butyrate, which act as cellular fuel for the colon, regulate immune function, and help seal the intestinal barrier to prevent what's commonly called leaky gut, a huge contributor to chronic inflammation. But here's the kicker. These bacteria don't just thrive on their own. They depend on you, on your daily choices, on what you eat, on how you sleep, on how you move. Every single decision you make either feeds the species that protect you or the ones that accelerate your decline. A high-sugar, low-fiber diet, that's fertilizer for harmful microbes. Chronic stress, poor sleep hygiene, and constant exposure to environmental toxins, that's how you wipe out beneficial bacteria and allow inflammation-promoting strains to take over. And once that happens, it's not just your digestion that takes a hit, it's your brain, your metabolism, your immune system, your mood. This is why so many people are dealing with fatigue, brain fog, anxiety, and chronic disease, because their gut ecosystem is out of alignment and their body is paying the price. Now here's where things shift. When you start restoring that microbiome, when you bring back microbial diversity and support the right strains, you don't just feel better, you literally function better at a cellular level. Energy production increases, inflammatory markers drop, neural communication improves. You don't just slow aging, you start reversing some of its early markers. This isn't theory, this is measurable. We can see it in the lab, and we can feel it in the body. What's amazing is how low-tech the solution really is. You don't need exotic supplements or futuristic therapies to get started. It begins with simple, foundational actions. Eating fermented foods like kimchi, sauerkraut, kefir, getting 25 to 40 grams of diverse fiber each day, especially prebiotics from things like leeks, asparagus, green bananas, and Jerusalem artichokes. Getting outside in the morning to expose your body to natural light, which regulates your circadian rhythm and improves gut-brain communication. Avoiding unnecessary antibiotics. Prioritizing sleep. Moving your body daily. These are the behaviors that nourish your microbial allies. The ones that give you more energy, more clarity, and a longer, stronger health span. The bottom line is this. Your gut isn't just part of your body. It's the foundation of your health. And when you build that foundation right, when you nourish it, protect it, and make choices that align with long-term microbial health, you change everything. You change the way you age, you change the way you feel, and you give your body a chance to work with you, not against you. If you're serious about increasing your energy and extending your health span, start here. Start with your gut. Let's dive into something that still flies under the radar for most people, but is quickly becoming one of the most exciting and actionable discoveries in the science of longevity, specific bacteria, what some researchers now call youth-activating strains, that live in your gut and can literally change the trajectory of how you age. We're not talking general gut health anymore. We're talking precision biology. We're talking about a small group of microbes that are directly linked to longer lifespan, higher energy levels, and better metabolic function. These microbes don't just passively live inside you. They interact with your immune system, your mitochondria, and even your genes. And the data is showing us they can dramatically slow biological aging if you know how to cultivate them. Let me give you one example. Akkermansia muciniphila. This is a species that thrives in a healthy gut mucus layer. What makes it unique is its role in maintaining the integrity of the gut barrier, reducing systemic inflammation, and improving insulin sensitivity. In mouse models, it's been shown to extend lifespan. In humans, it's correlated with better glucose metabolism, lower levels of inflammation, and even enhanced endurance performance. And when levels of this bacteria go up, people tend to report feeling more stable, more energized, and more mentally clear. Then there's Lactobacillus plantarum. This is another heavy hitter. It produces key neurotransmitters like GABA, which helps with emotional regulation and sleep quality, and it's also been shown to reduce oxidative stress at the cellular level. That means less cellular damage, fewer aging diseases, and greater resilience under physical or psychological stress. And we're now learning that it can even influence gene expression related to longevity. And we can't leave out Bifidobacterium longum. This strain plays a central role in producing vitamins like B12 and folate, both of which are essential for methylation and DNA repair, two critical functions that decline as we age. B. longum also supports the breakdown of dietary fiber into short-chain fatty acids like acetate, which act as a fuel source for colon cells and contribute to a stable anti-inflammatory environment in the gut. What's so profound about these microbes is that they don't just protect against disease, they enhance function. They upregulate the systems that make you feel sharper, stronger, and more energized. They contribute to higher levels of NAD+, which is a molecule critical for mitochondrial function and often called a youth molecule because of its role in cellular repair. They promote balanced immune activity, which reduces the wear and tear that chronic low-grade inflammation places on your body over time. And they even play a role in telomere maintenance, which is a direct biological marker of aging. Now here's where this gets incredibly practical. These microbes are not fixed in place. Their populations can rise or fall based on your daily inputs, and one of the most powerful levers is the food you eat, specifically the prebiotic fibers and polyphenols that feed these exact strains. Polyphenols from foods like pomegranate, blueberries, green tea, and dark chocolate are now known to act as microbial modulators. They don't just nourish you, they nourish the microbes that protect your youth. When you eat these foods consistently, you're not just getting antioxidants, you're shaping your gut ecosystem in a way that promotes energy, mental clarity, and long-term vitality. Fermented foods play a role too. We've seen in multiple studies now that a daily dose of fermented vegetables, kefir, or unsweetened yogurt can increase microbial diversity and elevate the abundance of longevity-associated strains. But it's not just about what you add, it's also about what you avoid. Artificial sweeteners like sucralose and aspartame, excessive alcohol, and emulsifiers in processed foods have all been shown to disrupt these key bacterial populations. If you're consuming those regularly, you're essentially killing off your microbial allies and allowing more harmful strains to dominate. That translates to more inflammation, more fatigue, and faster biological aging. This isn't a fringe theory anymore. This is systems biology. We're seeing it across the literature, from elite labs across Europe, the US, and Asia. We now understand that aging is plastic. It can be shaped, it can be slowed. And one of the most powerful tools we have is sitting inside us right now, waiting to be supported. When you feed the right bacteria, you're not just influencing digestion, you're enhancing mitochondrial energy production, you're improving neurotransmitter synthesis, you're reducing oxidative damage, you're literally constructing a biological environment that supports youth, not just in how you look, but in how you move, think, and feel. So if you're looking for that edge, something real, something grounded in science, something you can start today, it's this. Support the microbes that support your longevity, because they're not just passengers, they're partners. Most people don't realize this, but every single day without even thinking about it, they're doing things that are quietly wiping out the very bacteria that help them stay young. And I'm not talking about rare situations or extreme behaviors. I'm talking about everyday habits, the things we do automatically, often with good intentions, that slowly dismantle the microbiome. And when that ecosystem breaks down, aging accelerates, energy drops, inflammation creeps in, and systems that used to be fluid and efficient start to stall. We tend to think of aging as this inevitable linear process, one direction, no control. But what we're learning is that most of what we call aging is really a reflection of accumulated damage. And one of the biggest drivers of that damage is an imbalanced microbiome. The good news is we can measure this. We can track shifts in microbial diversity and function, and we can map that directly onto things like mitochondrial performance, inflammatory load, and even gene expression patterns. But here's the hard part. The modern environment is actively working against that balance. Start with diet. The standard Western diet, low in fiber, high in ultra-processed foods, loaded with artificial sweeteners and emulsifiers, doesn't just fail to nourish beneficial bacteria, it kills them. And it does it fast. A single day of processed food stripped of microbiota accessible carbohydrates can start starving out essential strains. And when those microbes die off, opportunistic ones, often linked to inflammation and metabolic dysfunction, begin to expand. That means more gas, bloating, fatigue, and poor glucose control. But it doesn't stop there. Those inflammatory microbes begin to break down the gut barrier. Microscopic gaps form in the intestinal lining. Endotoxins leak into the bloodstream. The immune system responds, and suddenly you're dealing with systemic inflammation that you can't see, but that you feel, as fatigue, joint stiffness, mood instability, and eventually chronic disease. And it's not just what you eat, it's how you live. Think about antibiotics. These are essential, life-saving drugs when used properly. But we now know that even one course of broad-spectrum antibiotics can reduce microbial diversity by 30 to 40%. And those losses can persist for months, sometimes years. Now combine that with chlorinated water, antimicrobial cleaning products, and the general obsession with sterility in modern life, and it's no wonder that we're seeing skyrocketing rates of autoimmune disease, allergies, anxiety, and metabolic dysfunction. The inner ecosystem that evolved with us for millions of years is being stripped away, slowly, quietly, but very effectively. Then layer on stress. Chronic psychological stress activates the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, elevates cortisol, and disrupts the communication between the brain and the gut. The vagus nerve, the main pathway of that gut-brain conversation, becomes less responsive. Blood flow to the intestines is reduced, and beneficial microbes, which rely on a stable, oxygen-free environment, start to disappear. You may not feel that immediately, but over time, it builds. You lose the microbes that help produce serotonin, GABA, dopamine precursors, neurotransmitters that regulate mood, motivation, and sleep. And so people become more anxious, more reactive, more fatigued, and they think it's just stress or age or burnout. But what's happening is deeper. It's biological. It's microbial. Even sleep plays a role. Irregular sleep schedules and light exposure at night can disrupt your circadian rhythms, and your microbes follow those same cycles. There's a synchronized clock that coordinates microbial activity with the time of day. When you eat, when you sleep, when you move, all of it sends signals that the microbiome responds to. And when those signals are erratic, the ecosystem becomes disordered. And so when the signals are calm and they're circular, some bacteria become overactive, others go dormant, and the overall function of the system starts to collapse. So now we're in a situation where the average person is unintentionally creating the perfect storm for accelerated aging. They're eating foods that starve good microbes. They're living in hyper-sanitized environments that kill off bacterial diversity. They're taking medications that disrupt the microbiome. They're chronically stressed and poorly slept. And they're wondering why they feel tired, wired, inflamed, and 10 years older than they should. But here's the thing, and this is crucial. None of this is irreversible. The microbiome is dynamic. It responds rapidly to changes in behavior. You can rebuild what's been lost. You can increase microbial diversity. You can shift the dominant species in your gut toward those associated with energy, resilience, and longevity. But to do that, you have to stop unknowingly destroying the system that keeps you vital. Longevity doesn't start in the future, it starts right now, by removing the habits that are silently aging you from the inside out. There's a window of time, right after you wake up, that is disproportionately powerful when it comes to shaping your biology. This first hour of the day sets off a cascade of internal signals that affect everything from your cortisol rhythm to your neurotransmitter levels to the expression of genes tied to inflammation, energy metabolism, and yes, even longevity. And one of the most overlooked ways to capitalize on that window is by feeding your gut, not just with calories, but with information. Because that's what food is at its core, biochemical information that instructs your cells and more specifically your gut microbes on how to behave. What we now understand about the microbiome is that it doesn't just passively exist. It responds to timing, it responds to nutrients, and it responds to the consistency of your daily habits. When you wake up and consume food that's rich in prebiotics, fibers, and compounds that selectively feed beneficial bacteria, you're not just improving digestion, you're activating microbial pathways that influence immune regulation, hormone production, mitochondrial efficiency, and brain function. And when that activation happens early in the day, it aligns with your body's natural circadian biology in a way that amplifies those benefits. This is why the first thing you consume in the morning matters more than most people realize. A simple prebiotic shake, something as basic as water blended with psyllium husk, green banana flour, flaxseed, maybe a touch of cinnamon or ginger, not only nourishes the bacteria that drive anti-inflammatory and pro-longevity processes, it also sets a metabolic tone for the rest of the day. You start with the right input, and the downstream effects ripple through every major system in the body. Blood sugar regulation improves. Gut permeability decreases, energy stays more stable, and cravings, especially for sugar and processed carbs, tend to drop off significantly. There's also a fascinating connection here with the gut-brain axis. Certain prebiotic fibers directly support bacteria that produce short-chain fatty acids like butyrate and propionate. These compounds do more than support gut health. They influence the brain. They help modulate the production of BDNF, brain-degraded neurotrophic factor, which is critical for neuroplasticity, memory consolidation, and emotional regulation. When people report that they feel sharper or more grounded after consistently starting their day this way, it's not placebo. It's the result of specific microbial signals being amplified in the right direction. And then there's the synergy with light exposure. When you pair that microbiome-focused nutrition with natural sunlight exposure in the first 30 to 60 minutes of the day, ideally outside, even if it's cloudy, you're engaging the suprachiasmatic nucleus, your master clock. That clock synchronizes hormone release, body temperature, alertness patterns, and yes, microbial gene expression, because microbes like us follow rhythms. They have active and rest cycles that are cued by feeding times, light cues, and host physiology. So when you give your system both the right nutrients and the right light cues early in the day, you're effectively telling your body, it's time to function at its highest level. It's time to optimize energy, stabilize mood, enhance resilience, and reduce the friction that comes with metabolic inefficiency or inflammatory noise. What's powerful about this approach is how accessible it is. You don't need to overhaul your life to see results. You just need to create a consistent morning input, a brief, structured practice that you repeat daily. Start with hydration. Add in the prebiotic-rich nutrients, pair it with natural light exposure, and if possible, even a short walk to further prime the gut-brain axis through movement. These actions, while simple, are compounded over time by the biology they trigger. This is behavior stacking at the molecular level. And it's not just theory. People who adopt this type of protocol, just a few days in, often notice more consistent energy, less bloating, better digestion, and a reduction in the kind of inflammation you don't always see, but you feel. The stiffness, the sluggishness, the brain fog. It doesn't happen because of magic. It happens because you're finally aligning your physiology with the patterns it's been coded to follow for thousands of years. What we're talking about here is using your morning routine not just as a productivity tool, but as a longevity protocol. You're leveraging the first hour of the day to reprogram how your body functions at the microbial, metabolic, and neurological levels. It's simple, it's actionable,